Hello everyone. In this video today I'm gonna be talking about button states. So what are button states? The button states are the communication between the user and the interface. So the user has the information about that button, if that has been pressed, if I'm able to click on that, if that is disabled, and so on. We're going to be seeing here an example from Material Design Free, how they display on their design system the different button states. Then we're going to be doing ours within Figma. So here we can see, for example, we have in the Material Design Free design system, they indicate the different states as enabled, that it communicates an interactive component or element. That means that is clickable, that I can click on it. So it's informing the user that that is enabled, that I can interact with that button. Then we have a disabled state that communicates to the user that that button is not working. The user cannot interact with it. That is this one. Hover state that communicates when a user has placed a cursor above an interactive element. For example, I'm gonna be doing here, can you see here on these different elements, it's showing that I'm hovering over it. So here is how Material Design Free elaborates on their hover states, how they display that to the user, how they communicate that hover state. We have a focused state, that is when a user has highlighted an element using an input method, such as a keyboard or voice. I can show you here. I'm gonna be using my tab. Can you see here? This overview here, it changed it because I'm using my keyboard. So can you see how it shows? Yeah. So that's it. So let's go back here. The pressed state that communicates that the user has pressed on it. Can you see here on the state layers where I'm pressing, the typography changed. So this is how the system communicates me that I have been pressing that element, that component. And then we have the dragged state that communicates when a user presses and moves an element. We are not going to be working on you have the example here, but we're not going to be working with that. We're going to be working now with enabled, that I also call it default. I prefer calling it default, is the resting state of a component we are talking about a button, but those states can happen with any interactive element that we have in our interface, okay? But then today we're talking about buttons, so that's why I'm talking about the button states, but those states can happen in any interactive element, okay? So today I'm gonna be focusing on this default state, the disabled state, the hover state, and the pressed state. The focused one, we can also focus on that, but that is a little bit more complex, and I think we can leave that to another one. So I'm gonna be working now with 4 states, okay? Default, disabled, hover, and pressed. So let's go with Figma. Last week we did an exercise here on creating our color palette creating the shades of our primary, secondary colors and accent. So today we're going to be working with these colors as well to help us with our buttons. I already created a text style, which I'm calling CTA, that I'm going to be applying to the buttons. And also, yeah, so let's start working on that. So first of all, you can also see here on Figma, it's also an interesting exercise. Every time you interact with any element, like when using any digital product, pay attention to the different states as well. This will help you build this being more aware of those states, and this will help you when you need to build like for your project. So for example, here on Figma, what happens when I hover over this here? Can you see it changes? It also has a tooltip, but we're not gonna be doing a tooltip, but just to show you what happens if I hover here on the layers. It changes as well, and if I click here as well, it changes to blue. So this means it's pressed. So this is how the system is communicating me about those states, about yeah. So let's create our button. Yes. So I'm gonna be, if you saw the class with about recreating sign up page for ChatGPT, you already know how I did the auto layout, that it has like more than a way to do it, but I'm gonna do the way that I think it's easier for you to understand. Let's create a rectangle. I'm gonna be creating a rectangle of 200 by 84. That is usually the size that I use for my buttons, so they are accessible and so on. We're not going to be talking about this today, but this is also an interesting topic, maybe to see like those common standards, how we can make our products more accessible, but this is another topic. So let's go back here. I created a rectangle. I'm going to be creating a text above it. I'm going to be calling that button. I'm gonna be, this is my, it's already applying my typography. If it's not showing, if it shows you like this, just come here on this 4 dots and apply the text style that you want to. Can you see that this is super, it's not like hugging the text. You can come here and just put this. If I want to have auto the height, I can come here, or you can come here to have auto width as well. So now I'm gonna select both. The system is indicating me that I have this selected, so you can also see the state being informed here, like Figma is communicating me about the state of these elements. So I have it selected. I'm gonna be pressing Shift A. I have an auto layout added to my frame that it was, and you also see that my rectangle has been transformed into this auto layout. I'm gonna rename this to button now. Remember when last class I told you about, the last video, sorry, I told you about what I add before and after the slash? We are gonna be using the same logic here. So I want to build the states for my primary button. So I'm gonna be naming this element primary. This means is my folder, let's say, because my primary button is gonna have these 4 states that we talked about, and then I'm gonna be putting after the slash default also. So I'm going to change the color here to this default color as we created in the last class. That's it. Okay, I cannot read the text, so I'm going to be coming here and changing this to, you can just change here to white and create a new color style, but I already created a color style for my text that is white, so I'm going to apply it. Awesome. You can also apply some rounded corner, then you need to select the auto layout here. You can also, I'm gonna put like a 16 radius corner, and that's it. So I'm gonna do a Command C, and so I have my primary default. I'm gonna do a Command C, Command V. I did a copy from this, and I'm gonna name this my hover button. So I'm gonna be, as we saw here in the example, just one reminder that this is really based on what you see as your design decision for this. You could have a hover state that is another color. I've saw a lot of examples that, for example, you hover over a button color and then it becomes pink. This is the way that you are envisioning on how to communicate your user about the state. So you can do whatever you want here. You can, yeah. I'm just gonna be following what I saw, for example, from Figma, that it has this slightly darker shade. You could also have, for example, here on material design, they have this drop shadow, but I'm gonna be putting another a darker shade based on what I created in the last video, which will be this darker. That's it. Then I'm gonna be Command C, Command V. I have now 3 buttons: default, hover. I'm gonna be calling this the pressed button. And you could also, oops, no, it's not what I wanted to do. Here on Figma, for example, if I press it, it becomes darker than the default. But as I already applied the darker to the hover, I'm gonna be pressing even darker for the pressed. This is how I want to communicate my user about the states. Again, you could do whatever you want with how you want to communicate that. It just has to have a consistency. And that's why we are doing this now. So every time you have this button, as I mentioned, components have different states. Everything that is interactive has different states, but now we are working with the button. So every time I have this button on my interface, it has to have the same, it has to inform the user the same way it's informing. So that's why we're building this component. So it will be applied everywhere on my, on my UI. So I'm gonna be adding here even darkest. That's it. So I have my default, hover, and pressed. And now I need to do the disabled button. So I'm gonna be Command C or Control C, Control V, Command V. Gonna be putting that disabled. And here I could have like I could follow, for example, here on Figma, if I don't add any email, you can see the system is informing me that this button is not working. I cannot interact with it. So this is a disabled button. I can have it gray. I could have it as lighter shade, for example, this. It is how you would want to take the decision, like how you want to communicate that again. So I'm gonna have, I like the lightest, but I think I could have even lightest. So I'm gonna be coming here on my color style, so that means I don't need to change it here. And I'm just gonna be changing my lightest color again, using that trick of, as we did in the last class, of creating an even lighter shade, because I want this to be super light. So it's too much. That's it. So this is how I want my disabled button to be. I could have it gray, I could have it, but this is how I should communicate my user. That's something the user cannot interact with that. Okay, so I have my default, hover, pressed, and disabled buttons. And what should I do now? So now we need to transform this into components, because we want to use that over our UI that is going to have a lot of different pages. So I'm going to be using these buttons in a lot of different ways, and I cannot be just Control C, Control V. So the components are going to be helping me with that. So every time if I use this component, if I need to change anything to that component, I can come to my source component, and I don't need to be changing everything. If I change one place, it's gonna be changing everywhere. Let's say, then I have like this button, apply it in, I don't know, apply it 100 times. If I work with the component, I don't need to edit all the 100 buttons, like 100 elements. I can just edit my component and it's gonna reflect on those 100. So I'm gonna be now transforming this into a component set. As we already created this primary default, primary hover, primary press, primary disabled, actually I'm gonna be doing something else, because then you're gonna be seeing the magic. I'm gonna be doing Command C, Command V, and create also the secondary ones. So I just did a copy of this one. I'm just gonna be changing here to secondary default, check secondary hover, secondary pressed, and secondary disabled. But I'm gonna be changing this here to secondary default, the secondary darker, the secondary darkest, and here for the disabled, again, I want to come here and add a fill. And I think we added, oops, it's not here. I think it needs to be here in the properties. I think we added this. Let's see. And then I need to come here and this. So yes, awesome. I have my secondary default, hover, pressed, and disabled. I'm gonna be selecting all of it. Can you see the system is indicating me that this is selected here? It changed this state. I'm gonna be coming here on, can you see the element for create component? Don't click here, click on this arrow, component options, and create component set. Just click here. Okay, this is my, I'm gonna be calling this buttons. And now I'm gonna be showing you some magic, let's say. Okay, so what happens now? I can come here, my assets. I'm gonna be seeing local assets, one component. I have this button here that I can drag it here. And it shows me this. I can choose between primary and secondary. And then I can come here and put disabled, hover, pressed, default, and the same for the primary. I can change disabled, hover, and pressed. So I have everything here as this only component that I'm gonna be using that across all my design, like I'm gonna be using this everywhere, and then I'm gonna be just changing from here, simple, to primary to secondary, and changing the states. Now I wanna build something here just for you to be able to see like in a prototype. So you don't need to know prototype by now, it's just that I want to show you how you can see it on your prototype. Okay, here is still the default state. I'm gonna be coming here and I'm gonna be linking this to this. This is an extra thing, okay, on this video. You don't need to do this. You already have your, this is Control Z. This is the outcome that I wanted to show you, how to create a component set for your buttons. But if you want to also see like, okay, I want to now see and go on seeing those states on my prototype. Just come here, select your default, link to the second one, and just put it, what is the trigger for showing this? This is a hover, yes? So it needs to be while hovering. Just one quick, super important information. We do not have a hover state on mobile because on mobile we don't have a cursor to hover, okay? So for example, if we are doing for mobile, you're not gonna have the hover, but you're gonna have the pressed and you're gonna be having the disabled, but not the hover, okay? So, okay, here, the interaction. Trigger while hovering, change to primary hover. So, let's see here. Can you see? It's already reflecting here on our prototype. When I hover over it, it's changing the color. Okay, so what if I also want to change the pressed? The pressed one, I'm gonna be here coming on this hover, linking to the pressed. It's funny because every time I'm saying depressed, it looks like I'm saying depressed. But okay, you get it. So here it means the trigger is while pressing, it changes to primary pressed. So let's go back here, hover, press. Can you see? This is it. So here the system is already indicating me that, okay, I'm hovering over this element, and when I press this element, it's changing the color. That's it. This is basically what you're going to be doing on your prototype when building that. And then if you are not going to be showing that on our prototype, because this means I cannot interact with it. So if I just want to show my, I'm going to be putting this here on, let me just show here. Let's come here, I'm going to be putting that. Yeah. So this one here is, I can interact with it because I already put it. This one as well, because it's already set up here on the component set. But if I want this one to be disabled, I'm gonna be coming here on design, changing, the property is already correct, the property one that is primary is already correct, but I'm gonna be changing this to disabled. So this button here, nothing happens if I hover, if I press, but this one, it happens because it's a button that that the system is indicating me, is communicating me that I can interact with it, and this not. Okay? It's a bit complex, but I hope you got it. This is super important. This is something you're gonna be doing for all your elements, that you're gonna be communicating the user their states. Try to do this exercise. Try to pay attention every product, every digital product that you use, how the system is communicating you about those states. This is a super, it's nice, and be curious. Just go and explore that, and then it's gonna be easier for you when you need to think about those. You're gonna be seeing, you're gonna be having that more in your mind, like, okay, I need to give a feedback for the user about if this is interactive or not. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for watching so far. If you have any question, just add it here in the comment section. If you think this would be helpful for a colleague, a friend, or someone that you know is learning about that as well, just share this video with them as well. So, and that's it. Thank you so much, and yeah, bye bye.